G'day guys, Raganark here. Today I'm in the PvP server in beta, so this server is basically just designed to test out the PvP side of things in the beta. All you can do is duel, queue for Battlegrounds and arenas, and that's it. If you walk out, you just get teleported back in. But it's a great way to test out the PvP system. So the talents I'm going to use is Demonic Strength, so that just makes my Felguard have another Blade Storm sort of thing that does 400% more damage. Using Power Siphon, so basically that means I sacrifice 2 Wild Imps and I get 2 stacks of Demonic Cores, which gives me instant cast Demon Bolts, which generates 2 shards each time, which is nice. I use Demon Skin because it's got really nice passive healing and it stacks well with the Azurite traits that give me this bubble, similar to how Pridas would work in Legion. I use Soul Strike because it's only a 10-second cooldown and it's a Felguard charge, which is really nice, and you get a Soul Shard out of it and it does a decent amount of damage, as you can see there. Mortal Coil's great. It's like an extra fear and a nice little heal that you get. Inner Demons, I'm just using that. It's been nerfed a bit. That only comes out every 12 seconds now compared to 10 seconds before, but the reason I'm using this is because it goes really well with Power Siphon. It's just always got 2 imps available to sacrifice if you ever need to use it. If I was using Demonic Calling or Doom, I'd probably go with Grim or Felguard in a PvP environment like Arena, for example, just because you get that extra stun and that Felguard does a lot more damage. Sacrifice Souls, just easy passive. Buffs your Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt by 5% for every demon you have. Pretty easy. Demonic Consumption is probably good burst build, but you need a lot of imps to get out, and that can be hard to do when you're under the pump in PvP. And the Portal is just a really long and expensive cast, not really ideal for PvP at all. Anyways, I'm going to show you some Battleground today and give you an idea of how the Demo lock performs. One other thing is like it's very ramp up sort of class. It's not as bad as what it was in Legion, but it's not exactly the burstiest class in the world. So it's the best way to play this in an arena environment is if you have a healer with you. Going all out DPS can be hard unless you're a master of the CC chaining, which can be done with the Demo lock. So that's one of its biggest advantages, is the amount of CC it has in its kit. Anyways, let's get into the games. Alrighty guys, so the talents I'm going to use, well first let's have a look at the enemy team. So on Horde, so the Alliance, they have a Ret Pally, Frost Mage, Ret Pally, Mistweaver Monk, Balance Druid, Fire Mage, Disc Priest, Marksman Hunter, Arms Warrior, Feral Druid. So they've got a pretty even balance of melee and casters. So what I might do Nether Ward just for the Spell Reflect, Master Summoner, make my Dreadstalkers instant cast, and I might get an Interrupt as well. And I'm using the Relentless talent as a Modern Orc, and it stacks well with my Stun Resistance Racial. And the other talents as I showed you earlier. While you watch this Battleground, I'm going to tell you as much information as I can think of about the PvP changes in Battle for Azeroth. The stat templates are gone. They are not activated in the beta, and it's been unconfirmed that the stat templates may not return, but Blizzard have not yet confirmed that. I personally hope the stat templates don't come back, because this is one of the things that had a negative impact on PvP in Legion. It worked okay in Battlegrounds for casual players that didn't PvP very often, or people that weren't geared, but players that liked PvP a lot didn't feel like they were getting rewarded the same ways they did in previous expansions. In rated PvP, it also caused some problems. Full DPS teams were pretty much unviable in 2v2 and 3v3, but made certain comps too weak as well, and some too powerful, meaning if your comp wasn't in the meta, it felt pointless to try and reach the higher ratings, as the strongest comps would stomp on you very easily. So removing the stat templates would make it so it's less about what class you play and the comp you have, and more about your skill and gear, which is what WoW is supposed to be. So bottom line, if the stat templates are a thing of the past, then I believe that this would be a good thing for the PvP community. Another big PvP change is the PvP gear and the reward system. PvP gear in Legion felt useless. There was zero advantage of wearing PvP gear in PvP, and the item level was significantly lower than the equivalent PvE gear. I felt this was a bad move in Legion, as it made PvP rewards less rewarding. 90% of the PvP gear you got was just super weak and vendor trashed. Also, the RNG rewards felt clunky and terrible, as everyone preferred having a PvP vendor. So the changes Ian said at the last Q&A stream about PvP gear is that it will be equal to the current raid tier. Naturally, the first rewards will be lower item level, but after you complete the first PvP set, it will then reward you with the next tier above. The PvP piece of gear will still be random after each win, but you won't get the same piece twice. Once you have it, it will continue to reward you with random gear that you don't have, eventually completing the PvP set. After completing the set, you'll be rewarded with higher item level PvP gear. Once you complete that set, it will go up to the next level, and so on. Ian said that PvP gear will start at Raid Finder level gear, next set will be normal, and after that heroic, etc. Rated gear will reward you with higher tier gear, depending on which rating you're at. So, for example, if you're 2200 rating or higher, you'll get the highest level of PvP gear. With the stat templates gone, your actual stats are now important again in PvP. Versatility now has a use aside from tanking. You could think of it as a PvP stat. I think that's what was intended in Legion, but then when they brought in the stat templates, it sort of lost its value greatly, meaning that very minimal situations when you need it if you're a DPS class. But on my Demonology warlock, my stats were a haste and mastery build. This is the ideal PvE build. However, against other players with high versatility, I couldn't do much damage at all. I also died very quickly, so I had to change my stats to a versatility and mastery build, which made a huge difference. My damage increased a lot, as well as my survivability. The only downside was it felt really clunky due to low haste, so I went back and tried versatility haste build, and I feel like it's a sweet spot for Demonology with a little bit of mastery. It's the build I'm using now on this Battleground. The throughput damage of the pets is lower due to less mastery, but my casts are making it harder for me to be interrupted as they're much faster, and also I can get more pets out quicker due to the faster spells. Some important things to remember is that the numbers you see in this Battleground are likely to be very different to what we get in live. We're still in the tuning stage in beta, and the dev team is focusing heavily on the PvP setup as they're trying to make up for the losses in Legion PvP. This is great news for PvPers as we'll have a much more interesting PvP experience in BFA. So I'm going to go over some of the specs in terms of how they're performing in PvP in the beta from what I've seen so far. So the Boomkin, or the Balanced Druid spec, is one of the strongest specs in the game right now due to its Moonfire dot being extremely powerful. This is very likely to be nerfed before live, but heaps of players are taking advantage of its insane power while it lasts. A Boomkin will likely win the fight in an AoE race in every Battleground, and give your team an edge in big fights. Frost mages are also very strong, as well as fire mages, but mainly Frost because of their slows can make a huge difference in Battlegrounds, and even Arena as well, making it harder for the enemy to escape, also making it easier for the mage to escape tough situations. Having 2 or 3 Frost mages on your team can be a huge advantage as the enemy team will be consistently slowed. Also, their burst damage isn't something to be taken lightly. A really strong single target damager is the Destruction Warlock. Its Chaos Bolts hit very hard, some saying it reminds them of Mists of Pandaria where the Chaos Bolt first entered the game, making several killing blows with ease. This is the case now as well. A good Destruction Warlock will top killing blows with ease, and they can be the difference between you winning a big fight or losing a big fight. They are also really good at taking out key targets like healers and flag carriers. So the Elemental Shaman is quite a strange one. Many people are saying they're underpowered, and many people saying they're stronger than before. And from what I gathered is their mobility is a bit less and their Flame Shock spread is harder because Flame Shock now has a 6-second cooldown, but their direct damage is much stronger. Like if you see a Shaman in the background, just beware, they can destroy you. Their survival is also much better, so in arenas you can't just be like focus the Shami and GG because they are much tankier than they used to be. They aren't the squishy Shami in the back that can take him down by a single rogue anymore. They will put up a good fight, but don't expect them to survive by escaping you anymore. It's still worth having a good Shaman on your team for the utility, and they can bring with their totems, plus their lust and heroism is also very nice. Shadow Priest feels like it's the same old story as before. If you're left alone to free cast to your heart's content, you will destroy everybody in damage. Your dots will hit hard, your ghosts will hit hard, and you'll generate so much insanity you'll become a god of darkness. However, you don't feel like a god of darkness if you get hard focused. You're still very squishy, and don't expect Dispersion to save you anymore, as the healing it did in Legion is now gone as it was an artifact ability. So killing you is very possible even when you're in Dispersion. But a good Shadow Priest needs to be a master of evasion, making it hard for the enemy to focus you as you stay as far away from them as you can, while keeping your dots up, subtly melting them away. The Hunter still has a really strong damage force, just like it did before, but if you play Beast Mastery, you may want to get yourself a good Spirit Beast, as in beta they have a very strong heal over time that you can cast every 30 seconds off cooldown on yourself or an ally. I've done several arenas with a Beast Mastery Hunter, and the healing has saved us numerous times, not to mention the heavy bursts they do, as well as the pressure forced by the pets. One big advantage is using your pet abilities like the kill command when your target is out of your line of sight. If your pets are there, they can still do the kill command. That's also an advantage that the Beast Mastery spec has over other pet classes like Demonology or Unholy Death Knight. So for the melee classes, the Warrior is a very strong spec in both Arms and Fury. They still have their CC immunities and can be difficult to escape from if they keep you slowed. Their multiple stuns and kick with a short cooldown can make them a tough opponent for a caster, especially in 1v1 combat. They are great specs for pressure if you like to be up in the enemy's face all the time. They're great for keeping pressure on key targets like healers and flag carriers. The Ret Pally is back. Nah, I'm just kidding. They were pretty good in Legion. Yeah, they were just a bit weird because you had to time all your cooldowns well. But now they're a bit more balanced, a bit easier to play in BFA beta, so many people are playing them again. I've struggled to defeat them in duels. They have really good self-defense. They've got good self-heals as well. The Divine Shield's still as powerful as ever, still the big game changer that most Ret Paladins play for, and it's also nice to have some utility with their buffs, and their layout enhance can sometimes be the biggest game changer of all. So the DK specs are still in the stronger, higher part of the DPS melee specs, Frost being known for its high burst. A good Frost DK will have no problem bursting you down quickly if you let your guard down. They have exceptional self-healing and can be a tough opponent for a caster due to their anti-magic shield. The Unholy spec can sometimes be even more scary, as many of their attacks are ranged, and plus they have their undead army to deal with. Unholy is keeping their Apocalypse artifact ability, and Army of the Dead is on a shorter cooldown down to 8 minutes, so expect to see it more often. Again, I'm going to have to mention the Shaman just because they're so cool. Enhancement is less bursty than before, but much more consistent, with Stormstrike having a shorter cooldown, and it also proccing a bit more often than it did in Legion. So the burst potential is still there, but you can't make the one-shot macros like you could before with the new global cooldown changes. I find its survival is better than before as well, having more talent choices that increase survival, like Earth Shield for example, to boost your survival, and it's something that, enhancement shamans have always wanted ever since Legion started, and they are still as fun and agile as before, and a good enhancement shaman will still have no problem keeping up with the other melee classes in damage. Demon Hunter has had some changes. It's still the fun Swift spec as you know it to be, but thankfully the rotation isn't just mind-numbingly spamming Chaos Strike like before. They still have some good self-healing as before, and versatility can improve this quite significantly. The only change I dislike about the new Demon Hunter is they don't feel as fast-paced as they did before. It just feels a little bit slower, but that's just my experience and my opinion. I've heard many positive things about them, mainly due to them having a much more interesting rotation. Now, Survival Hunter has had a lot of major changes, as many as Demonology Warlock if not more. Survival is very bursty, high damage, and of course it's got good survival. I've seen a lot more in beta than I have on live, especially in PvP. I've lost many games to them in arenas, especially in 3v3 games where they've ran double survivor and healer comp. They are still very much a melee spec, but they have more ranged spells as well as having their pets ravage you, making them very hard to kite. So if you're looking for that sort of bit of melee, bit of ranged gameplay without the spellcasteriness, survival is definitely a strong spec to pick this time. Monks are pretty similar to the Legion version, from what I've seen. They still have their swiftness, their stuns, their tigers, and they're the ninjas of BFA and Beta. They are still the most agile class in the game for all three specs. I don't see them as much in PvP, not sure if it's because they're the same old as Legion, or if they just feel like they need more. However, the ones that I do meet that are playing it still say positive things about it, mainly for its fun, agile, swift gameplay. The instant CC and stuns make them powerful in both Arena and Battlegrounds. Rogues will be the rulers of world PvP. They have their deadly, assassin-like abilities back. In Legion, they felt a bit weak in DPS due to their stat templates. It kind of felt like being a mosquito in Battlegrounds, where you did a little bit of damage and as soon as someone noticed you, bang, you're dead. But with the stat templates being removed, they are back at their full potential. Whether you're assassinating with bleeds and poisons, being an outlaw with cutlasses and pistols, or being subtly sneaking with sudden death at your blade, they will indeed be extremely popular in all forms of PvP. If I'm playing a rogue, sneaking around the enemy zones and assassinating the unsuspecting sounds like a pretty fun way to play one. They excel in surprise attacks, CC, and burst. Affliction locks are still very strong at pressure. Their dots put a lot of pressure on healers, forcing them to use their dispels, which silences the healer, giving your team a window of opportunity. Whether you're stacking unstable afflictions on a focus target or dotting every single thing you see, you'll enjoy a touch of Shadow Bolt and Death Bolt in your rotation to spice things up. For Demo Lock, just watch this video all over again. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.